Hey folks, following in the footsteps of Dave Gardner and Marco Scola and Tebow, going to attempt a walk and talk today at this park in Elkton, Virginia, alongside the Shenandoah River. And today's topic is going to be, at what point do you give up on a replay, and what are your criteria for giving up on a replay? Recently, I do a lot of replays of the 70-71 Bruins to test new games. And recently, I started a Bruins replay with a game. I'm not going to mention the game. And I bailed out a third of the way into the replay because the Bruins had already allowed 40 more goals than they did in real life at that point, and they had scored over 40 more goals. So at that point, I didn't have much faith in the game engine, and I couldn't see the Bruins scoring 1 or 2 goals a game like for the next 30 games to try to get back on track. And so it just wasn't working for me. And I've already replayed the Bruins with Hockey Bones, and they gave me the most accurate stats, team stats that I've had so far out of, I guess that was my fourth Bruins replay. So I started a Bones replay with the 74-75 Capitals, like one of the worst teams in history. Now it's an outlier team. It's going to be difficult to card them. They went through a lot of players that season, like the polar opposite of the Bruins, who had a very stable lineup. So to pick up where I left off, the Capitals, 22 games into a Capitals replay with Bones, and they have already allowed over 40 more goals than they did at this point in real life. Now, I fully expect the Capitals to be, get hammered. They allowed, like 465 goals or something like that season. And the one-loss tie record was almost spot on. They had only won 2 games at that point in the season. But it was the goals allowed that was really frustrating. And they just had some unbelievable games. There was a game they lost 11-9 to Toronto. It seemed like the games where they would actually score goals, they had 2 games where they scored 5 goals and lost. Then they scored 9 goals and lost 11-9. A wild back and forth game. Shortly after that, they lost 15-0 to the Bruins. In real life, I think the Bruins scored 10 or 11 in that game in real life. I mean, you fully expect the Capitals to have some losses where they allow double figures, but this was 15-0. And then they played a game against the Minnesota North Stars, and it was like the 11-9 game. They scored 8 goals and lost 9-8. And it was something like the Capitals were down by 2, and they scored 2 goals with like 3 minutes left to tie it at 8-8. And then they committed a penalty, and then Bill Goldsworthy on the North Stars scored like with just seconds on the clock to win 9-8. And then as I'm going to compile the stats, I see that I started the wrong goalie. I started Ron Lowe instead of Michel Bellemare. So that gave me an excuse to tear up the game and replay it. And they ended up losing 8-3 anyway. I mean, that's an acceptable score, but it was just very frustrating that the few times the Capitals are able to score goals, they still lose. Which, again, is not such a big deal, but it's the idea that they've already allowed 40 more goals. Now, I still have a lot of faith in Hockey Bones as a game. Like I said, after that 70-71 Bruins replay. Very impressed with the game. But I'm just putting it aside for now because it was really starting to frustrate me, and I'm going to start a new Bones project, similar to the kind of thing I've done before. I've got the 77-78 WHA and NHL in Bones. So I'm going to take 6 teams from the NHL, 6 teams out of the 8 in the WHA, make 2 divisions, play a 44-game schedule. I don't know, I may go the whole distance, but I'll play at least 44 games. And basically choosing the teams on if I find them interesting to play. I'm not going to include the Canadians because it's just too obvious. They were such a dominant team. But what I'm going to do, similar to what I've done in another project, is I've got a couple of bottom feeders included. I've got the Colorado Rockies, Cleveland Barons, and in the WHA, I got the Cincinnati Stingers and Birmingham Bulls, like all the bottom teams. I'm going to allow them to select a few players from teams that I didn't choose to be in the league, which in the WHA would be Edmonton and Houston are the 2 teams that I didn't include in the project. So I'm going to allow Cincinnati and Indianapolis and the Birmingham Bulls too. I'm going to let them pick a few players from Houston and Edmonton just to beef up the lineup a little bit so that the final standings aren't already determined just by looking at the team's won-loss tie record. So it's kind of, you won't be able to predict the winner, and I like projects like that where it isn't apparent who's going to finish on top. And I do the same with the Rockies and the Barons and one other team. I think the Penguins are the other team that wasn't a top team that year. I'll let them pick a few players from the remaining NHL teams to beef up the roster, and we'll see how that turns out. So that's my thoughts on a rainy Sunday morning here as I walk through the nature trail in Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. So let me know your thoughts on completing a replay, when to bail out, when to lose interest, etc. Okay, folks, have a good day, everyone. Take care.